just right there with you. We feel super frustrated about it. I know it's been really tough. And even though we now know that K1s are not affected by the ban, they're still affected by all of the backlogs and the fact that a lot of the embassies just aren't prioritizing standard K1 interviews right now. So one of the questions we've gotten recently is, okay, if I'm in the situation where I'm waiting, should I travel overseas, marry my fiance, and then try for a CR1 instead, an actual consular processing, spouse visa? And it's an interesting question, and it would really depend on your specific situation, but we wanted to walk through some of the pros and cons of doing that, since that's a question that we've heard recently, and we're trying to give you guys all the info you need, and that you want to know to make your best decisions. So I think a lot of people who are asking that are currently at the stage where they're just waiting for a K1 interview at an embassy. So I would say the first important thing to point out is you may have difficulties actually traveling internationally right now to be able to see your fiance and complete the marriage. It's not something you're allowed to do remotely, even though that's permitted in some places. Typically, immigration doesn't recognize a remote, the words totally escaping me. There's a word for it. When you have someone stand in for the wedding, it's like an old school thing to do. So that might be a barrier, first of all. Secondly, as soon as you legally marry, you're actually going to have to start the process all over again, starting not with an I-129F, but instead with an I-130. And so basically, if you do that, you're going to be putting yourself back at the very beginning of the process, like as if you had not done anything. So all of the things you've done to get your K1 case up to the point where it's at now will have been totally in vain if you switch categories. So I would say that the majority of people are going to think, I don't really want to do that. We're so close, even though we feel like it's really frustrating that we're so far, but we're so close on the other hand. It's also important to remember that even the CR1s right now are not getting interviews, unfortunately. Even people who've been married more than 2 years, and so it's not even a CR, it's not a conditional resident spouse visa, it's another type of spouse visa. They also are not getting interviews right now just because of the whole problem with the backlog of interviews at the embassy. So unfortunately, going and getting married abroad is not going to be a way to actually circumvent needing an embassy interview. It's just going to put you probably 8 months, maybe even longer, depending on the country, further back in the line. So I think that's an important thing to remember, especially now that we've gotten the clarity that K1s are not specifically banned. We're just not seeing a lot of progress right now. So that being said, are there any potential pros to actually doing that process? Well, potentially. Some people have said, I'm sick of this, and maybe my fiance's home country has an easier immigration process. So it's easier for the US citizen to temporarily relocate and then, maybe live abroad for a while. And in that case, it might make more sense, if you're going to spend a year or two there while this blows over. You might choose to do that because it definitely is, getting you into a slightly, potentially safer bucket, depending on what happens in the future. We don't know. Currently, there's no advantage to doing that, but there, could be potentially. We don't know what craziness is coming down the pipeline at this point. It's also easier once when you get a spouse visa, there are no additional processing steps once you enter the United States. When you get a fiance visa, that's just, like the halfway mark of the process. So, when someone comes in on a fiance visa, they are not able to immediately work in the United States. Sorry, my hand's kind of shaking here. I'm gonna switch hands. This is a long, important discussion here. But basically, when they come into the US with a fiance visa, they don't immediately have work authorization. Right now, that's being delayed significantly. They can't immediately travel abroad either. So I could definitely see some people in their specific scenario saying, even though we understand we have to start over if we get married, we actually choose to do that because we just want to one and done. By the time we come to the US, we just don't want to have to mess with any of this junk anymore because it's getting super backlogged. So that would be sort of the potential situation I would see where someone might choose that. Again, this is super fact specific, your specific scenario, and we are happy to discuss your life and your details with you at a consultation. Feel free to schedule on our website, Immigration for Couples. You can book 24/7, self-schedule yourself there. So we hope to talk to you soon. And we hope that this just gets moving soon. So everybody who's waiting for their K1s can finally have their weddings. We'll be very happy when we start getting those pictures up in our Facebook group of some weddings that have gone through. So keep the faith, people.